quick announcements. One, just to let you know about next month's program, which I believe is going to be a joint Zoom as well as in person. Catherine, I'm not going to get her name right, Pacraduni, is that correct? Thank you, Lily. She's a horticulturist here in Los Angeles, worked for many years at Theodore Payne Foundation, and she's going to give a talk about microforests. It's kind of an interesting new concept that is relatively unknown here in at least Southern California. And she's been working on a project on this concept in Griffith Park. So it should be pretty intriguing. And I don't think John said anything about our horticulturist of the year. So if you didn't get our newsletter, just you heard it here first. Dave Frost, the owner and founder of Native Sons Nursery up in Arroyo Grande, is our awardee this year. And we are thrilled to be conferring that on him. And the banquet will be at the Huntington Botanical Garden. Do I have the date here? Yes, September 17th. So this is the biggest fundraiser for the Hort Society all year long. So we hope that you'll come out and support the society and help us to honor Dave and his incredible horticultural legacy. So, okay, now I get to the pleasure of introducing our speaker, who just gave me this wonderful bio that I'm going to share with you. Brian Tichenor has practiced architecture and landscape architecture in California for more than 35 years. He was a designer in Charles Moore's office, a partner with Nancy Gosling Power, and a student of architectural history under David Gephardt. He and his wife, and I don't know how to pronounce her name. Ron Thorp, founded Tichenor and Thorp Architects in 1990 and have completed over 400 projects around the world. He is a professor at USC, where he has taught for the last 12 years. The work of his firm has been extensively published, including a recent monograph by Vendome Press titled Outside In, The Houses and Gardens of Tichenor and Thorp. Current projects include many houses and gardens, mostly in California, several large biomedical campuses, and the design of both the buildings and the landscape of the new Los Angeles Times headquarters and cultural center. So please welcome Brian Tichenor.
Yeah. Good evening, everybody. Glad to be here. You calm. Is that loud? Is that good? Everybody here? Closer, all right? How's that, better? Okay. All right. Well, here we are in another drought. We all love our parks and public spaces now, maybe more than ever. But they're very hard to keep up and they need a lot of water. So consider this advice. Now, why not plant parks in such a manner that they will produce maximum results at a minimum expenditure? Plant a dry ground park. Use native plants already accustomed to semi-arid conditions of our soil and climate. Such a park would be at once unique and would be decidedly typical and distinctive of California. It would be a place for those interested to go and see a collection of California plant life in its native environment. They might study the habits of the individual and see the fullest development under favorable conditions. So that's a quote from an article that Ralph Cornell wrote 110 years ago in the May 1912 Pomona College Journal of Economic Botany. It was titled Wanted, a Genuine Southern California Park. And it's obviously a pretty relevant piece for today. For a man who spent fully 60 years trying to provide Southern California with the parks he felt the region deserves, this is an amazing place to start. Okay. Technical help. Okay, here we go. I love to talk about Ralph Cornell. He perhaps more than any other landscape architect in Southern California gathers up all the threads of the two most vital areas of our landscape history and joins them into one astonishing career. As I hope I can convey today, this is an incredible career to consider. In my classes, I always like to pose the question, in what way is this important? Here's a few reasons. Cornell was a pioneering landscape architect whose vast body of work set the stage for the way that public landscapes in our region look, creating an aesthetic which was distinct from the slavist imitations of East Coast design that were the norm before his generation. No one else came close to the amount of work he offered. He's a fascinating character in the history of landscape architecture in this country. Looking closely at his career provides extraordinary insights into both the development of the region and into the long road that was traveled in establishing landscape architecture as a profession. And he was responsible for what I feel are three of the most highly significant landscape projects in Southern California. And they're distinctly different, and they're each blazing a new influential trail. And the reason I wanted to talk about him right now, when you guys asked me to speak, was throughout his career, he was a vocal proselytizer about the merits and benefits of the dry Southern California native landscape. To unpack how this deeply felt philosophy of place inflected his own often rather thirsty design landscapes is illuminating, both as an indication of how landscape architects were expected to provide services in the era of California's exponential population growth, and for how his lessons and his thinking can teach us now. There's Ralph. So he was born in Nebraska in 1890. His father was in the lumber business, with ranches and lumber yards in the Pole Ridge area and its environs. He was a great lover of horses. He was brought up on horses. He bought his first horse at the age of 10. And from a very early age, he's drawn to what he refers to as the sacred outdoors, where throughout his life he would seek, in his words, a lonely communion with nature to refresh his soul. He was the last generation that was brought up on horseback. And he would write late in his life of the memory of horses tormenting his soul. I think we underestimate the degree to which traveling on horseback connects one to nature. His family was drawn to California and all its wonders, as so many were in that generation at the end of the 19th century. First vacationing here for 3 successive years. Here's his mother, Maud, in Avalon in Catalina Island, 1909. There's absolutely nothing I don't like about this picture. It looks like a dog smoking a cigarette. It tells you everything about Avalon at this moment. And they sold the Nebraska business. They moved out. They bet the whole store on the eucalyptus lumber business. So this was the third pulse of eucalyptus lumber speculation. And it ended just as the first two had, with all the small investors taking a beating. His family lost everything. That's a Marion Cavanaugh watercolor of Santa Monica in 1909. It's actually near the corner of 26th Street and where San Vicente is now. So Ralph was just graduating from high school at the moment of a financial disaster. So instead of attending Nebraska University with very little money, he enrolled in the much more affordable Pomona College. Serendipitously, this was just as James Blaisdell became its president. This crowd might know Blaisdell was responsible for introducing the Oxford system of intertwined yet separate colleges, which would become the Claremont colleges as a unique approach in American times, the first one like this. So Blaisdell would be a major figure in Cornell's life. He would turn to Cornell to design a setting for his vision for the colleges, first in small items when Cornell was an undergraduate, and then at a grand scale later. Cornell would also meet Professor Charles Fuller Baker, a botanist who greatly shaped Cornell's future. He set Ralph up with a succession of assignments and internships, which firmed up his devotion to horticulture. His conviction that what he wanted to do was design landscapes. This is a page from Cornell's herbarium. This is a page from Cornell's herbarium, which had over 900 specimens by the time he left Pomona. With Baker's introductions, Cornell was able to spend several summers in the Imperial and Jolla valleys in 115-degree heat, working first on a survey of potential agriculture there, and then with the first serious date plantation owners, the Pomonas, who had gathered seeds and offshoots from Algeria, Syria, and Persia. They were developing methods of propagation and infrastructure for this new lucrative crop, which would establish the Coachella date industry. Baker was an early proponent of economic thought. Cornell wrote 10 articles for his Journal of Economic Thought. Small City Park was a great asset, was one of them, propagation of the dates, California street trees, and then that wanted a genuine Southern California park. Cornell referred to these adventures as his desert safari, and this was the beginning of his lifelong love of the desert. Baker also introduced Cornell to the extraordinary plants working in Southern California at this time, like Francesco Franceschi pictured here, who introduced a multitude of Mediterranean plants to California. He was responsible for most of the tree planting in Santa Barbara. He met Hugh Evans, he met E.A. Oprah, he met Baker arranged for him to meet Los Angeles Parks Commissioner Judge Silence, the park superintendent Frank Shearer, and who was laying out the beginnings of Griffith Park at the time. All these major pioneers of this horticultural milieu in Southern California would recognize the great potential of this young man and would begin, even in his undergraduate, before he's done with his undergraduate studies, to give him commissions and responsibilities of significant size. Okay. For instance, Cornell designed the treescape for the new Tony neighborhood of Fremont Place for graduates in Pomona.
some of these interventions in Beverly Hills, and just the way they would plant palm trees was just really, they were just extremely sculptural the way that they would place palm trees. And then I found out how deeply involved he was with Theodore Payne and how deep his connection to the dry landscape. So it's become a kind of, it's a guiding light in a lot of ways in my career. Whenever we do, I like to think that the new landscape we're doing for the Los Angeles Times has a lot to do with Cornell's lessons. In my mind, I'm thinking about the way that he was working in the way that we set that new landscape up. And certainly every step of the way, whenever we have information of enough size, I'm thinking about the way Ralph Cornell was approaching things. There's great landscape architects in Southern California. He's one among many really extraordinary.
Short and a long question. Did I get it right? The Dia book, he did all the photography for him?
He did. When I was going through his archives, and this is what I found. Most of those pictures, other than historical pictures, the new photography seems to have been by Ralph Cornell. All the negatives and then all the portraits he had them signed. He had like Martha and Payne and Evans signed the portraits. That's some chills.
The other one's kind of a landscape architecture question. You mentioned these are great plantsmen, and you can see that in his compositions. But it looks like he's a really great photographer too, and that makes you a better designer in some ways. Am I going to argue?
No, not at all. In fact, there's a wonderful adage about Gertrude Jekyll taking pictures of her gardens in the worst part of black and white pictures of her gardens in the worst part of winter, just so that she could see where the problems were. I think that I certainly learned that in school. You took a picture of your garden in black and white to see just where all the problems were. I have a lot of pictures of problems in my gardens.
So is there a book in the outfit about him? It seems like there ought to be.
There ought to be, yeah. There ought to be. Yeah, there have been discussions. It's, I just need I need another 20 hours a week.
Someone online wants, what did you say about black and white pictures?
Oh, just that it's used as a method to assess where problems in garden planting and design are. The problems of composition have a tendency to pop right out of the mix of black and white.
Then another online question, do you recommend books to be text more on this talk and more images?
It is, as Carol said, he needs a book. A lot of these guys need a book, and I could give you a list of about 12 that I think need books. So, there have been some wonderful articles over the years about Cornell. The CGLHS did a wonderful issue on Cornell. This lecture originated with a program that I did for the Horticultural Landscape Foundation in Washington. Then they did a program about Cornell about 5 years ago in the West Outdoor series. So there's little bubbles of information out there, but it is a really good to see.
Is it possible for you to maybe send us, maybe a list of these articles?
Sure, absolutely.
So you consider many of these projects, which I can also go through the article for you again. Do you have one, or maybe a top 3 that are actually still existent that are within the public?
Yeah, absolutely.
That people can go see it and put up script, Pomona College.
Yeah, absolutely. Pomona College is brilliant, and there's wonderful parts of it that are still very much in Cornell's, to his dictums. Torrey Pines is still to his specifications. All those things at UCLA are still really carrying his thumbprint, and you know, particularly the Franklin D. Murphy sculpture garden was just a great piece of work that you can go into any time. Beverly Park along San Marcos Boulevard that I discussed has just been revamped. And it's pretty good. You still get the feel. Then, you know, also Denver Park, which one thing is, there are literally, I can't remember how many, but it's just an astonishing number that I've explored the thousands. So there is a long list of things that you can still see.
You mentioned Rancho Los Cerritos.
Yeah, Rancho Los Cerritos is astonishingly good. Yeah, really good. Really, and they've done very good work there recently.
Thank you. Are you familiar with Pueblo del Rio, public housing project?
No.
Yeah, I worked there for a bit, and I know that he contributed alcoholics to the trees.
Yeah. I mean, there's, what you find is when you start going through the archives, it's like everything, like, oh, Parker Center, he did that. You know, there's like everything. He had a hand in so many things. He was such a prominent part of the fabric of the building in Los Angeles in the post-war period. But yeah, he was very involved with that. Quite a nice set of interventions.
Well, that was tremendous. All kinds of ideas for future Southern Cal work.